Hi, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining this session. I'm going to talk about WeCloudData's Data Analytics Bootcamp tonight. So I'm assuming that you're interested in learning more about data analytics or potentially, switch into data analytics and, in the process of doing your research, or maybe you have completed some online courses or other bootcamps and you would like to know more about the job market. So I'm going to give you an introduction to data analytics today. Share some interesting use cases, and then I'll talk about WeCloudData's data science, data analytics, and business intelligence bootcamp, and how we think that it can help you speed up your career switch process. So before we get started, my name is Shawa. I'm the co-founder and lead instructor at WeCloudData. If you would like to connect with me on LinkedIn, you can just search my name, and I have my email listed out here. If you would like to get in touch, feel free to send me LinkedIn messages or send me an email. The response rate is probably higher through email because I have a lot of connection requests on LinkedIn. Sometimes I don't get to those on time. And yeah, let's get started. I have some resources I would like to share with you. If you want to stay in touch with us or watch some of the event recordings, you can go to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@WeCloudData. So we have some open classes, we have information sessions and meetup events. You should be able to find all the videos there. We also have some open courses. So if you want to watch like our data fundamental course recording, and some of the student project presentation, you should be able to find on our YouTube channel. We have some free courses. You can go to learn.weclouddata.com and you can just create an account yourself, and you should be able to log in and find a free Python and SQL course. Those are pretty comprehensive. It has a lot of exercises, so hopefully that's helpful along your learning journey. If you want to join the Discord channel, and here is the link. So I believe Adam is going to share all of these links with you guys. All right. And if you're wondering whether you should be considering a BI data analytics, learning path, or maybe data science or data engineering, AI, you can check out the career guide. So you can go to weclouddata.com, career guide. I think I have it open here. So you can go to weclouddata.com and then go to resources, and you'll be able to find career guides. Let me open that. So we have written career guides for data science, BI, machine learning engineering, and data engineering as well. And if you're interested in DevOps, we have DevOps bootcamps as well. So check out these career guides, and they're pretty written in detail. So you'll find a lot of useful information here. So give it a read. I may go through some of these pages tonight, but if you have any questions, feel free to let me know. All right, so here's the agenda. I would like to take some questions at the beginning of this session. If you have any questions about our boot camps or data analytics and business intelligence in general, now is the best time to ask. I'll have some time at the end of this session as well to answer your questions, but maybe collecting some questions at the beginning will be helpful, sort of help me gauge the interest from the audience. So please feel free to type out your question in Zoom chat, and I'll copy and paste them here so we can go through some of these questions. And then I'll talk about data analytics. I'll sort of explain the differences among data analytics, data science, and data engineering at a high level. I'm going to explain the career path because many of our learners, I think, when they decide to switch career to data, they want to know what is the potential career paths and different paths they can go down. And then I'll introduce some use cases. I just list out some use cases, but I'll probably just pick one of them. And I'll talk about the learning path. If you would like to get started with BI data analytics, what are some of the things you need to learn? and then I'll introduce the bootcamp. Okay. All right. So if you have any questions, feel free to send them to Zoom chat, and I'll paste them on this Notion page. I'll give you a few minutes. Well, thanks for sending in a question. I'll start with some of these. First question is, how long are the boot camps? So we have two different types of boot camps. One is part-time. Part-time boot camps are typically 3 to 6 months. The BI or data analytics boot camp is part-time based. So it runs for 3 months, and it's weekday evening classes. And the data science program, the data science boot camp, we have both full-time and part-time. So full-time is basically study Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. And that's a 3 months program, so 14 weeks. But we also have a part-time option. For the data engineering, DevOps, most of these programs are part-time based. They typically last 6 months. So BI bootcamp is 3 months, weekday evenings. And DS has both full-time and part-time. And other programs like data engineering, MLOps, AI, and DevOps, and those are 6 months part-time programs. I'm on H-1B visa. Most of the employers looking for US citizens for data analyst positions. How can I mitigate this challenge? Unfortunately, I don't think I'm the best person to answer this question. And if anyone in the crowd, in the audience, who's more familiar with this topic, feel free to chime in. Yeah, but I can find out more information for you for sure after the event. So feel free to send me. I can connect you with the right person to discuss this topic. So feel free to send me an email. I sent my email to the meeting chat. Looking to get a better understanding of how to link my SQL and MySQL and Power BI, especially if I have locally hosted MySQL text file. So if you're on Windows, I think you need to install like the free Power BI desktop. And then if you have MySQL running locally, you should be able to make the connection. But if you're using a cloud version of Power BI, I think you better store the data in a cloud database. So whether it's in Microsoft Azure or in AWS, you need to figure out how to move your database to the cloud as well. I think connecting from the cloud to your laptop where you run the database, it's possible, but it's not worth the hassle. Do we do actual practices in these boot camps? Yeah, these are paid boot camps, right? So it's definitely what you're paying for is definitely the practices. And we focus a lot on project experience building. All the students will be able to complete more than 8 mini projects, and then the learners will need to complete an end-to-end, like more bigger scope capstone project. And student also has the option to work on real industry project. So that's another 6 months of training on the job. The real client projects are the program that actually helps students get job a lot faster. But typically learners will complete the BI bootcamp first, and then they will have the right skills to sort of meet the prerequisite to join some of these real company projects. Will we be using Power BI or Tableau? So maybe I'll tell you a bit about the bootcamp. So the bootcamp includes the following modules. First of all, everyone needs to complete a data fundamental course. So we run this, plan to run this, 6 to 7 times a year. So you will need to complete the data fundamental course that covers Excel. The new cohort will be covering Excel, SQL, Python, and Tableau. So you have to complete these courses to learn hard skills. And then we will start the boot camp. So think of the data fundamental course as the pre-bootcamp, but it's mandatory unless you know SQL and Python already. So pretty much everyone joined the data fundamental course. And then when you join the bootcamp, we'll be teaching more advanced Tableau and then Power BI as well. So Power BI will be one of the focuses of the bootcamp. And then you will be using Power BI, SQL, or Python to complete use case or case-based like mini projects. These are not considered as capstone project, but they still like the scope is still bigger than like the typical exercises, but you're still learning many different use cases, and then the learner will need to complete a capstone project, and that they can be using for portfolio. So these are the courses, and then the courses will be will last for 3 months. But after graduation, students will have access to 6 months of career services. So that includes private, resume workshops. So which means only alumni will be attending. But I think the highlight of this program is that you get 6 months working with a career mentor. These are data analysts or managers, data scientists who work in the industry. They will be helping you with your LinkedIn profile building, give you feedback on portfolios, and help you with job search. This is probably one of the most valuable service you're paying for in this case, other than the bootcamp, 3 months bootcamp itself. And they help you with mock interviews as well. And of course, WeCloudData does job referrals as well. So this is the total package: the data fundamental course, the bootcamp, projects, as well as the career service. We also have what we call the real experience building program. That's optional. That happens after graduation, and you have an opportunity to sort of pass the admission test and get enrolled in this program, which is 6 months, and we put you on real industry projects to work with different companies, sort of like an internship, but it's definitely more advanced level. So you're not really doing like very simple tasks. You'll be joining our project team to work with, you're not only working with data analytics or data analysts, you'll be working with data scientists, you'll be working with machine learning engineers and data engineers to implement large scale projects, a project that typically require different roles, and you will be learning from each other. And we have project managers and project leads on these projects as well. So you'll be working with the clients. So yeah, that's what we cover in these boot camps. The next cohort, I think, starts in October. Yeah, this is actually a diploma program. So you're going to get a formal diploma if you're based in Canada. For learners in the US, then it's a certificate program. So there was a really good question, because I think when we are learning, going through courses, many courses cover tools, but I think techniques and also best practices are very important. So in the bootcamp, like the data fundamental course, that is like tools based. We're covering SQL, how to write queries, how to use Python to work with OpenAI, for example, API, and how to use Tableau to do visualization. But I think you can get these skills anywhere. You can do that online. Joining the data fundamental course, it basically means that you're going to get some support, right? We'll push you to complete things. But I think that's not the biggest value of a bootcamp. I think the bootcamp is really the best practices and industry, because the use cases are taught by 8 different instructors. They all come from like banks or marketing agencies or different companies, they have their specialty, and they will be covering like how to do marketing analytics, right? They'll be covering different use cases, and you'll need to implement some small projects. So those will be more about techniques and how to do, adopt the best practices. While in the beginning stage of the bootcamp, it's more about learning the tools, because tools matter. You need to have these keywords on the resume, but knowing tools doesn't mean you can become a really, a good data analyst, right? That's a good question, John. Doing certification in Snowflake, Power BI is better based on the current market situation. That's a question from Hem. That's also a good question. My answer to this is that I don't think certification matters. Like if you are going to do certification with Snowflake, it probably tells people that you're more specialized in like more technical side of Snowflake, which is like, Snowflake inside and out, but it's more like on the admin side, or knowing like more from the data engineering side. But if you want to work as a data analyst, right, knowing Snowflake better, or you're specialized in Redshift or BigQuery, it doesn't matter. Like SQL is the tool that you're going to use, right, in Snowflake. So SQL is universal. It's more important. Like the database engine doesn't matter that much. There are nuances and there are differences, between different database engines. The way you write queries might be slightly different. But end of the day, you need to be really good at SQL. So I don't think a certification in Snowflake is that useful for you to get a data analyst job. But if you want to become a data engineer, that's sort of more specialized in Snowflake technology, because you work for a consulting company or you work as a contractor and the client is looking for specialized skills because they're just onboarding a new Snowflake project, that will be helpful. But I mean, if you're just looking for a regular data analyst job, the certification is not that important. I would recommend Power BI over Snowflake because I think Snowflake is at the database level, right? You're retrieving data, preparing data, and Power BI is the presentation level, which means if you can get Power BI certified, at least you know all the nitty-gritties of this visualization tool. It still doesn't mean that you can build really powerful dashboard, because it's not about stacking up, dozens of visualization plots together and then you know how to build a dashboard. It's actually sometimes about removing unnecessary information and present things nicely, in a very nice and in a clean way. So but I think, to answer this question, I personally think Power BI might be more useful, and SQL is more important than the Snowflake certification. Yeah, but you can either go with Power BI or Tableau. Certification is not necessary though, because if you can build a couple of portfolio projects and you have 3 to 4 dashboards hosted online, as long as the hiring manager can see that, I think that's the most powerful way to impress people and tell them that you actually have experience. Any suggestion for software engineer transition into BI and data analytics role? That's a good question. I don't see this happening a lot, because if you come from a software engineering background, you have a lot of options. You can get into data science, you can get into data engineering, and even machine learning engineering and DevOps. I'm curious to know why you would be interested in getting into BI and data analytics, because I think you have some really strong foundation, which is programming and writing applications. You might I would recommend you going after some more technical roles, like data science or data engineering. But if that's the direction you decide to go, there's nothing wrong with it. Maybe you just don't really enjoy software engineering. But then my recommendation would be try taking an online course. I don't think you need to join a boot camp, because you may find out that you don't really like it. Then the cost is pretty high, so I would recommend just taking an online Power BI course. and see if you really like, you really like visualization and data analytics. And also look into building customized or custom visualization applications, right? So you can go beyond Power BI. You can use, D3, like basically JavaScript, working with Streamlit, and some kind of, visualization application that require more coding. I think that would be, very, it will be in demand as well. So that would be my recommendation. And if you're really good with SQL, and you can consider analytics engineering as well, it's somewhere between, it's a role between DA and data engineering, right? So, and it's more about like working with Snowflake data warehouses and writing pipelines. So you'll be writing a lot of SQL, working with dbt. You may enjoy doing that as well. So that would be my recommendation. Someone's asking about the cost of the program. I actually don't know the exact price, but let's go to the program page. Oh, you'll find some of the projects our student worked on in the past for different clients, and some of the sample dashboards. Here are the schedule. Where's the price? So here you'll find detailed modules, right? Excel, SQL, Python. These are now part of the data fundamental course. We cover Tableau, Power BI, and then a lot of industry use cases, and then also portfolio building. Okay, how come there's no pricing here? But it should be in Canadian dollar, it's 7,500 with $500 scholarship. There are some additional scholarships, so it's around 6,500 and 7,000. And we charge Canadian price, so for the US price, it will be around $6,000. Yeah, that includes the 3 months boot camp, as well as 6 months of career mentorship, but that doesn't include the real client projects. NoSQL, we don't cover NoSQL in this course. That's more data engineering focused. I don't think data analyst will need to be good at NoSQL. So yeah, that's not something we cover. It's not very common. Data analysts mainly work with relational databases. Trying to transition from a Scrum Master role to data analyst, should I start with learning Python, SQL, or Power BI? The order I would recommend is definitely start with SQL first. So let's take a look at the learning path. Some of the core skills you need to learn, if you have never worked with data before, just begin with Excel and see if you like it. Most of the things you do in SQL, you can do that in Excel, and that help you build like data intuition, because you will be doing things like filtering, working with filters, doing pivot tables. You'll be working with some Excel functions, doing the VLOOKUPs, which is similar to join, right? It's a great way to get started with data analytics. And even when I used to work as a data scientist, I use Excel a lot, because whenever I explain my Python models, machine learning models to the business, I typically export some of those insights into Excel and then create a small report in Excel. That's very common. And data analysts will be answering a lot of ad hoc requests. You don't expect the business folks to know how to work with SQL. Most likely they don't even have a license, right? Access to the servers. So that means when you share data with them, it's going to be through Excel. It's either Excel, spreadsheets, or Power BI or Tableau dashboard. But not all business questions is worth building right? A Power BI dashboard. So you'll find yourself working with Excel a lot. And SQL and Python are just tools for you to interact with data and do analyses. So yeah, the right sequence should be Excel. But if you know Excel, then just skip it. Definitely start with SQL. SQL is easier to learn than Python. Some learners will start with Python and they have this fear, of programming and coding. So starting with SQL is actually a better approach. So learn SQL and see if you like it, and then continue to Python. That would be my recommendation. And then learn visualization after that, because you need to absolutely know how to prepare data first before you do visualization. If you build dashboard and only upload Excel, like, CSV files, then I don't think you'll be qualified for a lot of the data analyst positions, because SQL is absolutely more important than Power BI, because you need to be able to manipulate data first before you can even do any sort of discover any insight, right? And Power BI is really just a tool. You still need the data and the data model. To do that, to be able to do that, you need to understand SQL. So definitely start with Excel and SQL first, and then Python and Power BI. Or if you, because they're not all data analyst jobs require Python, so you can start with SQL and then do Power BI, so you can already complete some projects, and then you can move on to Python. Mitch has been given a lot of good suggestions. Thank you. Thanks for the input. How about the real project? How much does it cost to attend the real project? The real project, basically, it works like this. You need to be skilled enough to join the real client project. So that basically means that there's a screening test. And depending on whether you join data science or data engineering projects, but a learner is, has the opportunity to work on different projects, because once you're in the project, and let's say you come from a data analytics background, we assign you to data analytics projects, and then the project is never just going to ask for one thing. And sometimes you have to build pipelines and do some machine learning models. And if you can learn quickly, we're able to assign tasks, those kind of advanced tasks to you as well. So there's a screening test. And then after that, you'll need to do the onboarding. So there will be interviews as well. So you'll be interviewed by our project managers, mainly to understand what type of projects to put you on. And there will be onboarding training. So this includes self-paced learning programs as well, because the boot camps will never be able to teach you everything you need on the job. And there's no projects out there saying that, hey, today you learned Power BI, and then these are all Power BI projects. Sometimes the client, they don't use Power BI. Let's say they use Metabase, which is an open source data visualization platform. And we typically help our clients to deploy Metabase on their own server in the cloud. Then you have to learn Metabase quickly. So tools are just tools. But if you know how to do Power BI, and then learning, sorry, let me just remove the annotation. Okay, so tools are just tools. I think as long as you know Power BI, then you should be able to adapt, quickly to other visualization tools. So we have self-paced learning materials. For example, in a bootcamp, in a data science bootcamp, you may have learned classification, regression, but there's a supply chain client that requires a lot of time series forecasting. So we have those self-paced video tutorials, and you have to go through those training, but it depends on the project, right? A student can typically work on 2 to 3 projects, depending on, whether you want to stick with one big client or you work on multiple smaller projects over the 6 months. And one project might be supply chain based, another project might be for an AI startup that wants to do some growth analytics. So the training material really depends on the projects you're assigned to. And that's why sometimes, data scientist students will actually need to pick up some data engineering stuff because they need to be like, they need to automate data pipelines. Then we have Airflow training materials as well. And during the project, you will mainly be working with, and then you have to pass an assessment. depending on the client, and sometimes the client will need to do interviews as well. But don't worry, you'll definitely be able to work on projects. Like, we're not going to hold you back because you paid for this service. We'll definitely put you on the project, but we just want to let you know that these assessments are just like real life interviews. It's going to actually really help you just to get ready for real life, jobs. So you need to pass the assessment based on, for the project specific, right? And then you'll start working on the project. So you'll be working with client, you'll be working with the project manager, and also we have technical lead. And typical projects will have 45 team members, but there are bigger projects that you might be working with 15 people, and 10 of them are our full-time consultants. So yeah, it's a great way to learn and build up experience, because it goes on your resume, and that's one of the primary reason why students can get jobs really fast through the real client or real experience building program. But most students will start from the boot camp. But if you already graduated from a boot camp elsewhere, you can just choose to join the real experience building program directly. And the fee is 7,000 Canadian and around 5,000 US dollar for the 6 months training. These are all online based. So we used to do things in person, but when you join the real like projects, the client might be based in New York, or somewhere in Vancouver. So there's no way we can actually join the client in person. So it's all remote. But yeah. So it really depends on which cities you are, and most of the time we're connecting to the client's remote cloud environment, or sometimes our consulting company will set up the data infrastructure for the client, because usually it starts from data engineering. So yeah, you most likely be working with some sort of cloud services. It never happens on your laptop. All right. So I see a question, about differences between data science and data engineering. I'll throw in data analytics as well, since this topic is about this. This event is about data analytics bootcamp. So let me explain to you the difference between data analyst, data science, and data engineering. And I think the best way for me to explain this is just, let's take one of these use cases. I'll just go with the first one, which is growth analytics, right? This is one of the use cases we typically cover. Oh, by the way, these are the mini projects and business cases we cover in the bootcamp. So we cover like HR analytics, supply chain, and I think we cover power automation as well. But you can find that on the website. I think it's somewhere here. Yeah, so these are the use cases: HR, supply chain, digital marketing, fintech, credit risk analytics, and retail. I think there's like workflow automation using Microsoft tools. But I'll talk about growth analytics today. So let's say you work for an AI startup, right? So what's the hottest startups out there right now? Definitely generative AI startups, right? And let's say it's B2B business, right? And the business model is basically subscription, which means, let's say this company or this startup builds, let's say, customized large language models. Let's say they do customized LLM chatbot deployment or something like that. So I think one of the challenges with ChatGPT is that you need to upload data to their cloud to do fine tunings. But a lot of companies, due to regulation, they cannot upload their data. That's why a lot of companies ban ChatGPT at work, and that gave birth to a lot of startups, right? That can help these large companies or small companies to fine tune these large language models using their own data set, and then they can build chatbot and do text summarization, do all kinds of generative AI tasks, right? So there's a huge demand for this in the marketplace right now. Imagine you're a company that does that. By the way, most of these companies will die, like these startups you see today, because they either get bought by the bigger companies or they couldn't figure out how to make money. And then eventually they use up the burn, they burn up the investors' money, and then they'll just die. So that means being able to grow the top line is really important, but also growing the profit, right? So that means you need to acquire customers. So in the early stage of these companies, I think growth is the number one priority, right? Other than the product, right? Improve the product and then just figure out how to grow. You need to start by offering things for free, but eventually have someone, subscribing to the services. Whatever business model, you have to grow. So growth analytics is very common, right? Any company that has a service, whether it's B2C or B2B, they have growth problems. And let's say the customer acquired, clients through TikTok, right? So they will do TikTok marketing. They will sort of have videos pointing out like the pain points, right? And then that's how they get clients and get attention. And then people come to their website, that download the application, or they fill out the forms to become a customer. And then they start to use the platform, right? Assuming this is basically AI SaaS, okay, startup. And they have to write a lot of like content, blog posts, and they have to do events because it's very competitive marketplace, right? Now, what's the opportunity for data analytics, data science, and data engineering? So first of all, they need to build, right? So let's say data. Well, you need to have data infrastructure. Other than the software, right? Infrastructure. For software, you also need to have some sort of data infrastructure. Which means you need to run everything maybe in one of the cloud, right? You need to have databases. It could be, PostgreSQL, AWS RDS, right? And then for some companies that have, B2C business, they may have actually a lot of data. So they will need to have like, data lake. They need to have maybe data warehouse. And these are the things when you have more customers, then you'll think about building analytics stacks. And, automation. So you have to think about the infrastructure and platform piece. And then you start the data ingestion, right? Before you can do any data analytics, maybe the CEO has a question. How are we doing with sales? Then it will look into the CRM systems, right? To see how many products or subscriptions they have sold. But that was in the CRM system, let's say. So data sources, right? Coming from CRM, maybe they use HubSpot. I guess smaller companies tend to use HubSpot instead of Salesforce. Right? So the salesperson will log in, but very soon they will realize the limitation because they would like to connect the HubSpot data with their application data or the user behavior data, right? Or the marketing data. So they do MailChimp campaigns. So maybe they have, email services, right? They have application related data, behavioral data, okay? Maybe data on their website, right? Social media. And very soon you start to realize that you have data coming from many different places. And then the CEO would like to know all of these, right? This is where data analytics and data science come in. But without data engineers, you can't do anything. You can just, maybe the data scientist will be able to go to the CRM system, write some code, Python to work with the HubSpot API to download the data into an Excel spreadsheet or CSV, and then they use Python Jupyter Notebook to do some analysis. But what about, merging this data with the email campaigns, right? And very soon you'll start to realize that this is actually a lot of work, and you need data engineers to do something called data ingestion, right? Ingest data from 50 different sources into a centralized place. It could be a data lake. It could just be data warehouse. Right? If your company want to use Snowflake, by all means, you just dump all the data into Snowflake in the staging area, and then you need data analysts or data engineers to figure out the data modeling, data cleaning, and automate all of these processes, right? But typically this is a data engineering work, okay? And then you need to build the data warehouse, right? And that involves, data modeling, okay? And ETL, which means writing a lot of, SQL scripts, okay? And automation. And then you want to do more advanced analytics and machine learning, right? Okay, so it's always useful to look at this look at the entire pipeline, right? You should, when you try to understand the difference between data analyst, data scientist, data engineer, try to think of it from this angle, like where does the data come from? It comes from 50 different applications the business use. And where do we send these data to, right? Or where do we aggregate all of these data? Well, we do that aggregate them in a data warehouse, right? So who ingests the data into the warehouse? Who built the data infrastructure? Well, that got to be data architect or platform engineers who built the data infrastructure. But if you work for a smaller like startup, then as a data engineer, then you will take care of the data infrastructure as well. So it will be the data engineers, data architect who work with the data infrastructure, setting things up in the cloud, build data ingestion pipelines, like writing code or using some sort of open source projects, tools to connect to 50 different sources to collect the data into the data warehouse. That's what data engineers typically do, right? And once the data is sent to the data warehouse, someone will need to clean them, and someone will need to understand these data sources. Like, how do we even link a record in HubSpot, which is the CRM system, saying that somebody downloaded a form on your website showing some interest, to sending marketing campaigns, which is handled by the marketing team, saying that, well, we have these subscribers, can we send emails to tell them that we have a promotion, right? And who has received these emails and who has opened and clicked on these links and emails, that generates data as well. So how do we merge these two data together? And you have 50 different data sources. So it's a lot, it's a lot of work, and data engineers typically work on data ingestion and ETL. And they have to automate the end-to-end pipeline to make sure the data quality is there as well. So there's a new job, new role that's pretty popular recently, which is called analytics engineering. As I said, it's somewhere between data analyst and data engineer. So the analytics engineer will actually be doing ETL, doing data modeling, but traditionally these are handled by data engineers. For ETL, you're mainly using SQL, because databases such as Snowflake, they're typically used as data warehouse, and it's more SQL based tool. Okay, and then once we figure out the data warehouse, which means like how do we structure the data, right? Imagine Costco, and they get the data from different suppliers and they have their logistics, but once everything is in the warehouse, like in Costco, they have to put them on a shelf. They have to sort of make sure that the food goes to the food area, and there's their clothing, so you're basically keeping the warehouse more well organized, right? And data warehouse is just a place for you to organize the data. And then when customers come into Costco, and if you've been there, if you've been there for a couple of times, then you don't even need to ask around. You just know where to go, right? To get the frozen food you need, to get the buns you need, or get the appliances or whatever, security cameras, where to find them, right? So the data analysts are basically like the customers going to a warehouse. First of all, they need to understand the data model, right? They have written some queries before. They understand where the data is, and then based on the business requirements, they will be writing queries to extract the data into their data analytics environment. So data analytics involves dashboard building, right? But there are also a lot of ad hoc reporting, which means, the business will just walk over to your desk and say, hey, this is pretty urgent. Some customer numbers are declining, and the VP is required, asking about a report to understand, do a deep dive analysis. We would like to understand why. So those are typically ad hoc reporting. They need information as soon as possible. And then you'll realize that working as a data analyst, you're either you're typically very popular, like you're the most popular person because everyone's coming to you asking for information, right? And then you realize that you have to learn how to prioritize things because you will get a long list of things. Like there'll be a huge backlog of requests and everyone wants the information, right? And then it will be great if you can find opportunities for building dashboard that serves many different departments, for example, or different teams that helps you and help the business as well. So eventually some of these ad hoc requests will turn into opportunities for building a dashboard because you don't need a dashboard. It's an overkill for ad hoc requests, right? Or sometimes the request is basically just build a dashboard because the marketing team would like to have a dashboard refresh on a weekly or daily basis, and then you get more time to work on it, right? But the first step will always be talking to the data engineering team, figure out where to find the right data, clean the data, build the pipeline, and then build the visualization using Power BI or Tableau, right? So these are data analytics, and sometimes you will need to do like A/B testing for marketing campaigns, doing some ad hoc analysis. Most of the time it probably don't involve statistics. Sometimes it may need some statistics and math. And data scientist, right? So this will be data engineer, building data infrastructure, or data architect, right? Data engineers doing ETL, data engineers or analytics engineers. Okay, so analytics engineer, building the warehouse and ETL pipelines, and then will be the BI and data analyst, right? We're going to work on the analytics piece, and data scientists doing more advanced analytics, which is machine learning, things that involves more math and statistics, right? So they'll be doing more predictive analytics. Okay. All right, hopefully that explains the difference between among different data jobs. Okay. Okay, but back to the use case. This is how we sort of build up the data pipeline, but let's say we would like to do growth analytics, right? It's possible when we have, let's say, something that's like something close to a data warehouse, right? You figure out all the data sources, and then after cleaning the data, you can do growth analytics. Then you're addressing questions like, right? The use cases are always built around, right, the business metrics, right? So let's say we would like to build a dashboard that shows daily active users and monthly active users. Because maybe as a startup, right, the CEO needs to reports to the investors on a monthly basis. So they care about understanding the metrics is very important. So different investors will be asking for different information, but as a business in general, you need to understand like how many daily active users, right? Sometimes statistics can lie. People say, oh, we've had like 100 million users over time. But then the next question is, the real question is, how many of them are active on a daily basis? Maybe it's 1,000, right? So that means I've worked with a company like this, right? Recently, fairly recently, when they do very good TikTok campaign, right? Some of these videos went viral, and on a typical day, they will get like 50,000, 100,000 like people visiting or downloading their application. That looks amazing, right? Like when you look at the daily active user chart, basically just like a bar chart or a line plot over time. And it's showing that you see these huge spikes and you're getting a lot of new downloads, which is great. But the thing is, let's say, their first week retention was really bad. which means people download the application, they play with it, and then they just stop using it. They never come back. And I'm just making these numbers up. Let's say 80% of the people never come back after the first use or the first time, right? And then maybe 20% of them come back after, like, last longer than a week. But how many of those 20% will last longer than a month? That's what the investors will be looking at. So as a data analyst, I think you, first of all, like when you look into the data, you need to build these dashboard or whatever ad hoc analysis to understand the daily active users, monthly active users, and very quickly the business will ask you to look into the retention. They care about acquisition, but it's really important to know how stick your application is. Like if people don't stick around, then this is not successful. Like you haven't found the market fit yet, right? The product has problems. So the early stage, that sort of just tells the CEO that you need to improve the product features, listen to your customers, right? And data analysts become super important because, they've had like hundreds of, millions of users. You got to figure out like the feedback and why people are leaving. So data collection becomes important. So you need to have data engineering for sure. It's so important. It helps you collect all kinds of data, right? And then you need to, data analysts will need to do a lot of deep dive analysis, and that helps the business, a lot. It helps the CEO to shape the strategy, right? And in the longer term, you want to do, customer retention. If you can have a great application, right, improve some features, then people will start to stick around. Your retention will improve. But over time, like, sometimes you need to give people the incentives. You need to do some promotion. You do that through, like, let's say, MailChimp marketing campaigns. This is where, data science comes in, right? You can build machine learning models to, let's say, churn prediction. Because the data analyst will be able to tell you, right, through data analysis, these are the people who stopped using our application, right? You can write SQL queries to tell that, well, these are the 5,000 users who downloaded the app last week, and then they used application for, let's say they used application for more than 5 minutes, but then they never came back. It's actually pretty complex, like SQL queries you need to write, right? And data analytics will be able to help you discover this kind of insight. But you need data science to be able to tell that, okay, well, identify these customers who are more likely to churn. So can we identify these customers as early as possible? Because sometimes there are customers who stick around, like they're loyal customers. They've been using your applications for more than 6 months and they subscribe to your services, and all of a sudden they will stop using it. So can we identify these customers? And because this happens in the future, because they are still active right now, but you want to be proactive as a business, you would like to predict who's more likely to leave. And then you can send them coupons, or you can give them whatever, incentives to keep them happy and, make them stay. And that will make your number look better. And you have better, DAUs and MAUs. So your investor will keep your investors happy and it will invest more money, right? But hopefully it's not, you don't just do this for making your numbers look great. It's also better, it also leads to better customer experience, and eventually have a great app and people just love using it. And then you'll build a successful business, right? So you need a lot of data analytics, a lot of SQL, but also understanding the business metrics, and how data is collected and how users are going to use these data and insights is very important. So it's never just about using the tools, right? You need to understand the use cases, and some of these questions will come up during interviews because you might be interviewing. So that's why maybe 50% of the data analyst jobs out there, their title is data analyst and business intelligence specialist or whatever. But sometimes the job title is just marketing analytics. It could be growth analyst, right? So when you search for jobs, you need to cast a wider net. You need to know, like, growth analytics is basically data analytics plus some data science, right? Or HR analytics. These are the jobs you should definitely be applying for, but because the title is different, it's not data analyst, it's HR analytics. So that means you need to walk into the interview knowing how HR analytics work. So understanding the use case is very important because they definitely will ask you this kind of questions, or they are going to favor those candidates who understand or had some experience with HR analytics or growth analytics in the past. So when you choose your portfolio project, I think it needs to be more business driven instead of tools or techniques driven. Okay. All right. So I think I pretty much covered everything I would like to introduce today. I think some of the questions were related to the bootcamp. So if you have any other questions, feel free to ask. I think I stopped the voice channel. So I'm going to allow everyone to unmute yourself. So if you have questions you would like to directly ask me, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
Yeah, hi. Can you please share this document?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see how I can make this.
Okay.
Okay, I think I need to publish this first. Oh, yeah, but let me share that with everyone. See if you guys can access. Yeah. Any other questions?
Hi. What about Power Query? Do you teach that at all? Or is that part of
Power
Power
Query, yes,
BI?
part of Power BI. We mainly focus
Okay.
on Power BI. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, what the hey? What about Power Automate?
Yes, I think we touch on Power Automate in the workflow automation part. That's what we cover. Yeah. It's not mentioned here, but I know we cover Power Automate. So yeah, the logo is mentioned here as well. So there's one use case about Power Automate, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, I want one small suggestion from your side. Basically, I'm also trying to do some projects, but in course of time, I don't know, my motivation levels go down. So can you please suggest me some way where I can handle this situation?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, yeah. So as you mentioned, growth analytics and HR analytics, these were really good projects. But I also personally started preparing on my own or working on these projects with my own interest. But in course of time, I am losing the motivation which is there in beginning of the project. How can I handle this one to complete that project? Any thoughts there?
Oh, okay. So when you're in the boot camp, I think it's just part of the requirement. And I think we have project mentoring session. I think most of the learners they will lose motivation or some momentum when they're going through the portfolio project building, due to a few reasons. First of all, they get stuck on something, right? Like this happens a lot during among the data engineering students. They're trying to build like a very complex data pipeline, and that involves data infrastructure as well. And some students will get stuck on just setting up the entire infrastructure, and then they haven't even gone to the point of like building the queries, writing the queries, ingesting the data, but they just got frustrated with the infrastructure piece. So I think at this point, like the project mentors will be very helpful, because these are live sessions and we have TA office hours on a daily basis. So you can join and ask questions, and the TAs will basically help you debug things. I think working as a data analyst or any kind of, data professional, I think problem solving skill is very important. No one's able to teach you everything, right? So you always need to be ready to Google, even ask ChatGPT, but you have to figure out what is the right question to ask. And also once you get some sort of answers from Stack Overflow, you have to try that and make sure that that works. So yeah, I think having someone to sort of work with you when on these projects will be very helpful. And then everything has a deadline. You have to do presentation. So every minute, like the capstone project you do, you have to present to the entire class. And if you work on the real client project, then there will be like daily stand-up meetings. There will be weekly meeting with the client, and you'll be under pressure to deliver things. That sort of just push you forward. And I think that's the whole point of joining a boot camp, because a lot of things, something including these tools, I think you can just self-learn. But if you need extra, motivation or working with someone and get feedback, I think the bootcamp will be helpful. But bootcamp may not be for everyone, because if you're really good at self-paced learning, then you should just curate a curriculum and just learn on your own. That would, that a lot of data analysts are self-made as well, right?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And a follow-up quick question for you. I mean, I'm even applying for jobs, but I feel like I know most of the things, but at some point of time, I'm unable to recollect certain keywords, which will aptly help in answering the question. Can you throw some light there?
Do you mean the keywords to be put on the resume or the?
Yeah, keywords. I'm keeping the keywords in the resume, but
Okay.
during the interview process,
Okay.
if the interviewer is asking some question related to data engineering or some machine learning concepts, I am unable to recollect those at certain point of time. I mean, revision is only the key there, or anything else?
Okay. Yeah. So this is very common.
Yeah.
First of all, I think this is not going to happen a lot if it's a data analyst job, right? I think reading the job description and being able to dissect, a job description is very important. Like by looking at a job description, you need to know that, okay, this is data analyst job. It's asking for Tableau, Power BI, SQL, Python. I have these skills, but just look for some interesting keywords, right? Some of these data analyst jobs may actually mention some data science and machine learning statistics, but someone who's a little bit more experienced may be able to tell you that, well, this is actually not important. They just put it there, but you're not going to use it at all, like in your job. But sometimes it may actually matter. So when you look, so you have to read the job description carefully and decide, before you go to the interview, you have to do research. And then if they do mention ETL, analytics engineering, then you have to do some research. Like you have to do more reading. And when you start applying for jobs, chances are you're not going to have the time to complete another course. It takes time, right? And it takes you another 3 months just to learn machine learning. So you may not have the time to learn machine learning or big data, but do some reading, right? Read some use cases, do some practice and talk to data engineers to make sure that you're able to answer some of these questions. But it takes some effort. You have to practice a lot. But definitely read the job description, right? So, because what the employers are asking for, they should put that in the job description.
But sometimes it's not working. Recently, I've cleared one technical round, but I was not successful in the director round. Basically, he asked me only two questions. One is like a client has, if this is a scenario, a client approached you and he has a problem statement. What are the questions you are going to ask him? This is the first question, and the second question is like, tell me some 4 to 5 business storytelling, business use cases, storytelling. I was able to tell only 2 stories, but he was not convinced there.
Okay, I think that's exactly why you need some sort of real project experience, right? That's the difference between real experience and in a regular portfolio project. So unfortunately, there's not much you can do. When it comes, but you know what? Since you asked this question, so if the question is about use cases, I think the best way to learn this is to, or practice, is just to go read.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'll just give you one real example. Let's say.
I don't know if this is helpful, but a friend of mine was just hired by Amazon, and he says they have a star interview method,
Yep.
which is basically a way to prepare yourself with sort of real-time stories.
Yeah, situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't cover everything.
Yep.
But what you can do is you can say, okay, here's a case where I had to analyze the data. What did I do? And you'll be able to say, hey, I could analyze data this way. And if you can do it this way, you can probably do it the other way too. Anyway, just a thought.
Thanks, John. That's very helpful. The STAR interview approach is mentioned a lot. I highly recommend everyone to read more about it. I think it will help you. It tells you it gives you a methodology. Like, in an interview, when you come across this type of questions, this is how the approach you can take to answer these questions. So you're more structured. But I think for this question, my recommendation is actually you need to do some preparation even before you go to the interview. These questions actually tend to come up, in future interviews as well. So you just need to do preparation once. Like, if you know how to answer it, maybe you failed this time, that's okay. But you can do more, preparation. So in the future, when you come across these questions, you can be much better prepared, right? One recommendation is to read white paper provided by these big consulting companies like McKinsey, Deloitte, because right now there's golden opportunities in consulting on generative AI, right? A lot of companies want to build it internally, so they need talents, they need strategy consulting, and they also need technical implementation. And these big consulting companies are competing against each other, and that's why they need to sort of establish their industry, like have some best practices and let people know about them, right? So you can download, for example, generative AI economic potential, but they actually mention use cases. I think you need to read some of these. Let's say the company you go to is in the retail industry. You should definitely read more about data analytics, right? Use cases in the retail industry. That will help you. But don't just stop there. And the projects you have worked on, in the past, how do you connect those to these use cases, right? So you may have worked on something that's related to churn analysis for telecommunication, because I think there's a telecom churn data set, right, on Kaggle. So you've worked on that, but it's for like telecom. But the churn problem is pretty much the same, right? Industry by industry. So you can sort of connect the dots there. Like, this is how you can apply churn analysis in retail, and just read more about how retail industry handle churn. But in terms of the tools and techniques, you know how to build churn models, or you know how to build dashboard. And then maybe combine that with the STAR methodology that will actually be helpful.
Yeah, got you.
There was also a question about regarding how to get real experience if you don't choose the real client project. My recommendation would be, it will be hard, right? But see if you can start from your friends. Do you have friends, right, who works in startups, and see if you can volunteer. But you have to find the real client, because if it's a busy startup, they already are well funded, they'd rather hire someone to do that, because for them, time and speed is important, right? Why would they work with you? Sometimes they wouldn't, like, even if you say you can do things pro bono for free, they wouldn't want to waste time. So you have to find a business, right? They're just getting started. They don't have a data scientist yet, or data analyst, or maybe they don't even have like a database or whatever. That's opportunity, right? So work on your business development capable, skills, and reach out to people. But you need to have some sort of credibility. Like, why would people trust you? getting data projects is really hard because people will need to share the data with you. It's not like if you join a typical UI bootcamp, right, UI UX bootcamp, it's very easy for you to get project because you can just go, the bootcamps can go to different companies and say, hey, we have students who can build these projects for you. They don't really care. Like, you don't need to touch any of their data and infrastructure. You can just build something for them. If they like it, they take it. If they don't like it, then you're not wasting their time. But when it comes to data, it's sensitive, right? And they will need to make sure that you can actually deliver something for them. And they also need to explain the business to you, because you need to understand how they curate, or how the business processes will generate data. And that's a lot of time for even for the founder to do the upfront communication with you. So that means you need some, even if it's like just looking for pro bono projects, you need to have a portfolio, right? You need to tell them that you have the experience, but you're willing to work with them to provide some value. You're not begging them for projects, because usually it's not going to work out. But you're going to tell them that you need me and I can help you, right? And that also helps me build up more experience. It's win-win. And have your portfolio ready. Show them your blog post, your portfolio, maybe a Power BI dashboard, host it online so they can see it. Make sure it's really good, right? It's just like job search, and then maybe we'll get some opportunities.
Yep. Can we share our LinkedIn in the chat box with your permission, or no?
Oh, feel free to share your LinkedIn.
Okay. And I feel like one more problem is like meeting fellow working professionals. I mean, in LinkedIn we get connected, but we don't share our ideas or thoughts, right? Is there any platform where we can share our ideas and thoughts, experience?
Yeah, so LinkedIn. A lot of people use LinkedIn to share ideas and thoughts and build their personal brands, because you can use LinkedIn post, right? You can just post something on LinkedIn, on Twitter, but I think LinkedIn will be better. And if you plan to do this, like continuously doing this, I would recommend maybe a Medium blog post. Some people will build their own GitHub IO or their own personal website using WordPress. That takes a little bit more work, but if you plan to keep doing this, then it might be worth it. But the easiest way to get started with blogging will be Medium, I think, and then LinkedIn. Yeah, because I see people like sharing their portfolio projects or their GitHub on LinkedIn. That's one way for you to do networking. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
And also another good strategy is just go find those hiring managers and senior data analysts and data scientists who are more active on LinkedIn. Because the reason why people post things, right, the motivation is all the same. Like people posting on TikTok, on Instagram, there's a purpose there. On LinkedIn, you see some managers, directors, data scientists posting things. They're building their personal branding. So these are so always like their posts and make some comments, right? And after people see that you've actually responded, if you post something, you care about the responses, like people's comments. So after they've seen your responses a couple of times, then you start to make a connection, introduce yourself, it will be more meaningful because they have seen your name a couple of times. If you just go to LinkedIn and then do like search around, like search data analysts or managers, and then you just start adding people as new connections, it's less effective. But I think my recommendation is probably very time consuming. So you probably have to try both. Yeah. And also reach out to recruiters. Because most of the recruiters, at least they will accept your connection, right? They may not have a job for you, or maybe they think you're too junior. But it's their job to stay connected with people, because maybe today you're not the best candidate for them, but who knows, like 5 years later you become a director, you become a vice president, you will be their client. So recruiters usually don't turn down people's connection request. And then you have to figure out a good way to do self-introduction and make your, GitHub portfolio or, blog post or resume look very attractive. So you do need to work on your LinkedIn profile. That's very important, right? And I've seen people saying that even like the LinkedIn title, right? The way you sort of describe yourself, that first line is also very important. It affects the click rate and acceptance rate as well. So do some research about it.
Sure. Thank you so much for your advice. And
No problem.
yeah.
Okay, great. I think that's it. It's my pleasure to spend the past, an hour and 20 minutes with everyone. The recording of this session will be uploaded to YouTube later. And let's stay connected on LinkedIn. Again, this is my name. You can just search and find me. Share that with you. Let's stay connected. I think on Thursday we have an event for data science. I think it's the job market event. So yeah, if you're curious, you can join that session as well. I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the future events. Hope everyone have a great evening.